Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Breaking into Data session. I'm Aaron Fallouz, founder and CEO of Promotable. With us today, we have Sahar Sasiri. I'm totally sorry if I butchered your name, but really cool background. So you guys are going to learn a lot, really just about the data science job process. I know, especially if you're just jumping in, it sounds like, it feels kind of crazy. You're getting questions out of left field. You're not really sure what to do, how you should approach it. So we'll talk about that and more. Before that, just a couple of quick announcements. Be on the lookout for emails for our next upcoming events. Next week, we have a data science lead from Milliman. He's really cool. He's also looking for interns, so if someone is trying to jump in, really great guy. He's got experience with a bunch of different bigger companies as well. Then we have a data science recruiter the week after that. We have 2 of those coming up. And we also have a data scientist from Amazon towards the end of the month. So those will be really great. And then just a quick note about Promotable and who we are. So Promotable, we're a data science career accelerator. So we focus on closing that data skills gap. We do that through a variety of things. First and foremost, through our events community. So we have stuff like this almost every single day. It's always free. And this is just so that, it's one thing to say, I want to do data science. It's something very different to talk to people who do it every single day. So you know what you're actually going to be doing. You'll know what kinds of different titles you should look at, what it's like to work at different kinds of companies, different scales, all those kinds of things. And so we cover a lot of that, but really I want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable raising your hand, asking questions. Everyone's here to help you. And we want to make sure you're able to get as much out of it as possible. And then for folks who want to dive deeper, we also have an immersive data science bootcamp accelerator course, which takes you from no technical background all the way up to data science, junior data science level. And we tack on, of course, all the career services and mentorship and network that we think are missing from a lot of the boot camps. That's also an income sharing back program. So if anyone's interested, feel free to reach out to me after the event. But for now, Sahar Sasiri, really, really cool person, amazing background. Please kick it off.
Thank you for the introduction. I appreciate it. It's happy to be here. And people, if you guys want to say your background and shout it out in the comment section or chat section, that'd be great. So I could know what is the people's background here. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, everyone, feel free. Mostly, we just want to know if everyone here is an aspiring data scientist, you're looking to break in, or if there's some folks who are already experienced. Feel free to throw that in the chat section. And then we're going to have a little conversation here for the next 10, 15 minutes or so. Feel free to get your questions ready. Throw those in the Q&A. We'll address those as soon as we get to it. And then also, for anyone who wants to, we always encourage you, raise your hand, join the conversation. I'd love to see all of your faces. Definitely, please raise your hand as we get to Q&A. We'll bring you on, because I think that's one of the things that we're missing from all these webinars, right? Is being able to really kind of see each other, ask those kinds of questions, and get stuff from it. So I think the first thing would be just, if you wouldn't mind, Sarah, just giving everyone a brief intro on who you are, what you do, what your kind of road was up until you got to Delta, and then we'll jump into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my college with industrial engineering, and I actually chose industrial engineering because I had no clue what I want to do in my life. And the thing is that about my country is that people usually we have mandatory courses, only mandatory courses. We don't have music courses or art courses back in high school. So usually people don't know what they want to do for the future. They don't know what they want to do. Industrial engineering sounded really awesome to me because I thought, again, we call it like an ocean with 1 inch depth, because you learn a lot of stuff, but not very deeply. So starting with industrial engineering, I thought let's figure out what I want to do. I thought I'm more into fashion, or I'm more into, I don't know, like interior design. But I don't know, I ended up in robotics. And after 6 months, I kind of learned how to do coding. Not really, but I tried. I started with C. I bothered a lot of people to learn how to how to do programming. Our job was with Java, and then I remember one of my classmates told me that Bill Gates said in 20 years people will understand the value of Python, because it was really angry that we have to learn Python at the institution that I was doing robotics stuff, and then but that was like an important thing. It changed my mind. I was like, okay, if that's a thing, I should get more into it. And now I have some skills, but I'm very, very confident about my Python. And then for grad school, I wanted to use all the things that I learned or collected as my background. I didn't want to just be a computer scientist. So what I did, I thought, okay, let's just find something that it's like all of them together, and data science was a good option. And I also work in a branding and marketing company, and they told me that I wanted to go to Germany, but then they told me like I'm a United States kind of person, which I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing, but that kind of like get into my head again, and I ended up in the United States studying data science, and then it was a year and a half. It was master's degree. I don't know if it's a good news or bad news to you people, but data science, you can barely find a good job. In data science, no, we can't find data analytics job, but data science job, you literally cannot find jobs unless you have grad degree, sadly, because now it's going more towards PhD, and I really don't want to do PhD, but hopefully it has not still started. But a lot of companies like Google, they don't accept anyone with less than PhD unless you have 5 years experience. Anyway, so I ended up in a grad school of data science, and then after that, I started my job at Delta March 2020, 4 days before lockdown, which was challenging.
There we go. Everyone on LinkedIn. Now is their link. No, I mean, really cool. I think it's a unique story, but also a common story. At least part of it, right? It's especially there's a lot of folks who are kind of coming in with like master's degrees and like, how do I target it? What do I do? And so it's super interesting. But I think my first question really is just diving into the pre-Delta part, right? Talk to me about what that job switch process was like when you first finished. It was at University of Rochester, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, what was that? What was that like at first? Did you just spray out applications, and like, what was the response, and kind of how did you optimize? What did you learn that they don't tell you when you first go through these programs?
So in our school, they used to tell us like, yeah, networking is very important, which is true. It is very important. But they used to say like networking is very important, and just like chat with people, go to on LinkedIn or networking sessions and just like ask them how they like their company. They're not going to answer you if you do that. If you need referral, just go and get your referral. I'm working, and I know that I don't have time to, like ramble on about what's going on at Delta. It's just, I mean, if they really want to know, that's awesome. But if they don't want to know, I know that it's not going to be a really valuable discussion. They're not going to really pay attention if you just want to know what's going on in their company just to get referral, and people that sense it. And it's like, and it is right to sense it, because you put like, hey, I'm looking for a job, and then I'm looking for a job, and then you say, okay, I want to learn about your company. I saw this position. So there is some way they're like, okay, you just need a referral. So what I do always on LinkedIn, I'm just like, send me your resume. I'm just going to refer you. And they're like, oh, thank you so much. So you can just like, this is what I did. This is what I learned from school, and I saw that it's not working. Let's start from the beginning. I started applying for job in August 2019. I was supposed to get graduated in December 2019, and I started from August. and we had to go to this festival. It's like a women in technology celebration of Grace Hopper, and it was a huge thing. It was way over my head. The size of the career fair was huge, and all the big companies, small companies, like there were, I don't know, maybe 1,000 companies. I just don't remember the pages, but I remember that it was 6 pages of just the logos of the companies that they're going to be there in a career fair. So it was a huge venue, and you couldn't see the end of it. And it's so I had to get ready. I had to choose which company I want to go to, and I'm not going to be able to go to all of them, that's for sure, because it was 3 days, 3-day celebration. So I had to like sort them out, which one accept international students, which one sponsor international students. So there were like the things that was important to me. So I had to talk to people online. I had to get them referral. So that's because that's just for women in technology. I'm not going to really go deep into that, but that's why I started from August. But then after that, in October, which was at the beginning of the October, was the end of that celebration. I got a lot of interviews in the festival there, but I blew them because some of them I was overqualified because they were like data analytics and they were like more business stuff, which they were like, we're not going to do Python. Like you're going to be overqualified. We're not going to be able to offer you what you want. But some of them, for example, like Capital One, I wasn't good. I wasn't good in an interview because I had a lack of knowledge in statistics. And I'm really lucky that I got my Delta job because they didn't ask any statistic question. I was really lucky, and that was the first time that I was like, okay, so after I find a job, I'm gonna just be focused. I'm just gonna focus on the statistic, and that's actually what I did. I'm not perfect on statistics, but I'm really good now. So I understand the concept. I know the application. Anyway, but I started with the I think Capital One was the longest interview that I went. I went to the last round, and it was so hard to focus. It was really hard to get the questions when you don't know what they're talking about. And I just wanted to, for example, I'm going to give, I don't know if people mentioned their background, but for example, like they asked me about boosting, and I memorized what boosting is. And then in that pressure, I forgot what boosting is. And so I couldn't answer that. So you cannot memorize things. And that was my approach, to memorize the things that I have lack of knowledge in. And then it didn't really help me. I couldn't remember. But I noted the things that I need to, I have the notes that I have from my interview. Always you need to get prepared. That's a rule. And then I did interview with PayPal. I did interview with Capital One, Microsoft, Bloomberg. Not Bloomingdale's. Bloomberg? What is that?
Was it like the business research company?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bloomberg. Yeah.
Yeah, Bloomberg. Yeah, Bloomberg. They asked me actually software engineering questions. No, I couldn't. IBM was like all of the people who did IBM interview in our the friend circle at U of R. They were like, "What the hell?" Like, it was so hard. It was 3 sections, and each section was like a really long job. It was easy to understand what question is, but it will take a while for you to finish it. And it was only 140 minutes time for you to do it. So that was like, and then when I saw them, they were like, yeah, because we don't accept entry level. And I was entry level.
It's interesting. You brought up a couple things that I want to touch on, because I think they're like really valid and important things. Like how much of it is you think companies not really understanding not how to hire, but like how to describe the roles that they're offering, and how valuable do you think it would be rather than like reaching out to people and looking for a referral, but more saying like, hey, I understand that oftentimes like data science titles often sound similar, but the work you do is very different. I'm kind of curious, is this more for a statistician or a software engineer, right? It's like, that's crazy. But I get that because there's like a lot of folks, and even for people who tuned into last week's event with Scott, who's now at Northwestern Mutual, he was working at a previous company. He was like, I joined as a data scientist, but I ended up doing a lot of data engineering, and that wasn't in the job description.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, my colleague, at work, I really insist on the project that I insist on the data science of the projects that they assign to me, because I'm not going to do anything else. I love my job. I'm not just here to earn money, and I want to learn. And so but my colleague, she's from, she did environmental engineering, and then she went to Stanford and did business school something. And then in the business school, she took, I think, machine learning course. She's amazing, don't get me wrong, but sometimes she's like, oh, my job is not really data science, I'm just like coding. But she doesn't insist. Like sometimes you have to go and like, hey boss, this is not data science. I'm not here to code. I'm here to do data science shit,
Yeah, no, part of it is like sticking up for yourself, or not sticking up for yourself, but advocating for what you're interested in, and also maybe trying to get projects that aren't assigned to you, right? There is that, like, I think I asked you earlier about working with stakeholders, and there's two kinds of stakeholders, right? There's like your business stakeholders, but often it's like making friends with people within your group to kind of get the kinds of projects and really even understand like what's value add and what's not. In terms of like for the projects you're on, but I'm also curious, after going through all those interviews, is there like, do they feel like all different, or like looking back, are there a few things that you're like, you really have to be able to nail this for most data science interviews that you go for?
Can you elaborate a little bit? I'm not sure.
Yeah, is it like, do you have to have like really strong stats background for every interview?
It depends on the role. Data science, it's a general umbrella term. But if you're a data analyst, no, it's just like be more business person, or do more visualization. They care about how you're going to present your work. They're not going to care about the modeling that you're going to use. I'm exaggerating. Of course, there is like a nuance to that. It's just like, it's not always 0 and 100. I'm just like saying the data analyst mostly is trying to explain the data. Data scientist's job is to be able to model the data, and then the engineering part, they work with database and how to. They do more software engineering things. They do. They might do like even optimization, like code optimization, make it better, faster. And data scientists, they were just like, hey, like we check and like random forest works, but like the data engineer might even develop the random forest themselves to make it faster than Python library itself.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I think the key takeaway here is do your homework before you actually go into an interview and read the description, not just the title, right? Because usually, like in the description, if it's like we're looking for someone who's going to be making Tableau dashboards all day long, but they call it data scientist, that's what they're going to care about. But I guess my other question really is like, what are there any takeaways from like now that you're actually doing data science work at a real company? Are there things where you're like, oh man, this is what matters in the real world? And like, they don't actually cover this stuff in grad school.
Sorry, I was thinking about the thing that I have to add, but for data scientists, I was just thinking about it. For data scientist interviews, they say, oh, just no machine learning, no Python. Guys, machine learning, they mean statistics. I saw that at least up to now, one of the people there, he or she is in PhD in statistics. Good for you. It's amazing. Like they find job so quickly. It's amazing. They know statistics. That's what they need. I'm trying to learn statistics as well as a PhD in statistics, and it's so hard. It's really hard to work and study,
At the same
simultaneously.
time, yeah, that's great. It's one of those things where, yeah, everyone who goes through a boot camp does it. It's totally insane. You have to be a little bit crazy. I say that, but also like when you're hiring someone, you're like, oh, this person works really hard. Like that's what you want. They want it. But one of the things you also said that was interesting for me was you said, the one thing you don't necessarily want to do is just try and memorize everything for your interviews. What do you mean by like not memorizing stuff? Is it just like you kind of understand the patterns that things go into, and it's more about solving problems, or is it something else?
Yeah, just like, for example, if you just Google what boosting is, they're going to just give you one sentence and you can just memorize it and say, oh, this is boosting. And if you remember, then
cool.
Because, yeah, they're going to be happy about it because they're not going to, but like, they're like, you're going to forget because there are tons of algorithms. How many of them do you want to memorize?
Yeah.
And do the definition.
Yeah, and how important is it? It's one thing to be able to do the stats and make the algos, but being able to explain it to like a business stakeholder, like why you use one algo versus another one, how significant is that for, at least in your experience, for data science?
Yeah, I think we were talking about this in the backstage that so if, in terms of when you find a job and you are a data scientist in a company, this is the problem that also my colleagues, my data scientist fellow, they also have this issue that they're going to present it for very old, experienced people in that industry. And for example, in Delta, they might be like not old as the age, but they're like 30 years in airline industry. They are the grandfather of grandfather of airlines. Like they know a lot, so they're not going to be like, they don't care about like how you're doing things, and they don't really enjoy like hearing fancy words, and they might think like, oh, you're just like using fancy words to convince them. And this is the atmosphere, and they don't like, it's not like, oh, I'm also like, okay, I'm going to talk about an example. I had this presentation. I put it in a, from my perspective, it was really understandable. It was so good. And I also added the PCA part just in the Y axis of my graphs. That this is the values and this is the PCA values. That's it. And my boss actually, but he wasn't the business level. I was actually looking for him to say like, oh, good job, and then I have to go to business level and convince them. He was like, what is PCA? And I started like explaining that this is what we do with PCA. And he said, I don't understand why we're using it here. He was frustrated. He was like, what the hell do you mean by this? Like, I'm not getting what you were doing here. And I kept like saying it was making sense for me, but he was getting madder and madder at me because I was just like, using fancy words in front of him that he just don't know. And he's like, hey, don't waste my time. I'm the director of this department. I don't have time for this, jibber jabber. I want to learn what value are you going to bring to the table? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just like, and for example, again, like we have null values in our data set, and that's exactly the discussion that I had with my boss today. And tomorrow I have a presentation from my director, and I was talking to my boss that, hey, like, how would I tell them that so the reality is that my graph should have like gaps. It should be empty. It should be null value. And now it's all of them are valued. They are non-null value. And my boss will say like, hey, this is not reality. How did you do that? With what rationality did you feel these null values?
Yeah.
You cannot just tell him like, oh, PCA algorithm in Python doesn't accept null value. He's gonna like, what? What are you talking about? Like, I don't care. Like, tell me how is this gonna help me out? I'm scared. I don't know how to say that tomorrow. So I ended up I just checked with my boss that I'm gonna say like, hey, it's just a mathematic rationale behind it needs us to fill these gaps. Like you have to choose your words the way that the shareholders will buy it. Otherwise, they're just going to be frustrated. Because just imagine yourself if you go to, I don't know, if you go to a conference and they use like very technical, they say like, oh, it's going to be for any level of people. of understanding of environment, and then they started talking about technical things, you're going to get frustrated. You're going to leave the room. I'm not going to understand what's going on. So that was the case with the shareholders. I mean, we don't have like a shareholders like clients, but we do have like business level that we need to sell to them. Like, hey, this what we're doing is way better than what you're doing manually.
Oh yeah, no, what you're talking about is more common than most people would expect. Like I was having a conversation with someone, I can't name this company because I'll throw them under the bus, but we'll say it's a big West Coast tech company. Do with that what you will. But he was like, at this company, and mind you, this is like, one of the titans of tech. He was like, they say that data science has no ROI. And so much of it is because these like people who are doing it don't explain like what business value they're generating. So someone just thinks we're wasting millions of dollars for nothing. But if they say, hey, actually, we're looking at these kinds of clients, or we know this, if we can figure this out, we generate way more revenue. But if you can't have that conversation, like he's like, I won't join a project if I can't, if like they haven't articulated the ROI. I'll go do something else because that won't be valuable.
Makes total sense. I think that takes actually the longest time. I know that the people, that's a saying in data science community that we say like 80% of data science job is just data cleaning. And that's true. It's pre-processing. And that is very true. I think 80% of data science job is to be able to sell their project because people don't know what they're talking about. And then among those 20% left, 80% of it is cleaning. It's just like it's really hard to get people on board.
And especially, I mean, when you're at a bigger company, I was talking to one of my other colleagues, and he's like, it's if you're a startup, you're making the ML algorithms yourself. But like if you're at a huge company like I am, we use Data Robot or some other vendor because honestly they could do it better than you can. And the biggest problem I have now is figuring out which model to use, making sure the data that's fed into it is correct, and actually pitching that to stakeholders. We'll dive into a couple of these questions that we're getting. One of the questions from Emilio, he just asked if what resources did you use, preferably free resources online, that you use to prepare for your interviews. And I mean, I know a lot of it obviously is kind of like you do it, you fuck up, and you learn. But there's other stuff that you use to help yourself prepare. So
here's the thing: for interviews, it's just like you're not gonna have time to watch videos. It's just like time is very tight. You want to get the best out of it. You want to be able to cover everything. You want to just also review the things that you already know and make sure that you are there. Some of the is just we have a sorry, you are people here. Hey, math PhD, nice. Anyway, sorry. What I was saying, I forgot. Okay, no. So it's just like your time is tight. You gotta go to your interview. You're not gonna have like 3 months to. Even 3 months is not enough to go through everything. I think the best thing is that first get the guideline from the hiring manager. Like, hey, do you have any clue what kind of question? Like, for example, in Capital One, they were like, hey, I just want to give you a heads up that it's going to be gradient descent. It's going to be one of the questions. So it was just like getting an idea, like, okay, how deep they're going to go into machine learning. Just like, oh, it's a gradient descent is very basic. So they're not going to go crazy deep into machine learning. But that's a sad thing because I blew the interview that wasn't really deep.
No, these things happen. I mean, sometimes interviews, it just honestly depends on who you're talking to. Like, there's even variability, even like what they care about or what they think is valuable. Like, I've had some people who say, like, I could train you to become a better coder. Like, what I can't train you on is like being able to hustle or having domain knowledge to too long, right? So it's like, depending on the company, sometimes like what I tell people is like, you're trying to break into data science and you're transitioning from a different kind of career. But hey, if you had like a financial background, go to finance companies, right? It's like you're going to have at least get why they're doing data science versus some other folks. Let's see, let's grab some of the other questions here. Oops.
Data science, towards data science. People know it's a good source. It's not perfect because people just put things. There's no checking as much as I know. Maybe I'm wrong.
TDS is.
Yeah, please correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what my understanding is. But just like try to search and quickly collect your data. I put it on paper and I print it out to have it, in my hands all the time, and I review them because before interview you only have time to memorize. That's what I'm saying. Like now that I have time, I'm studying statistics to get the fundamentals better. So if you have time, if you're not in job hunting situation right now, it's a good time to collect what you want to do. It's what you want to learn. And if that's the questions, I do Coursera courses. Sometimes I have this element of learning, statistical learning. I think it's a very popular. I'm going to send the link in a minute. But that is a really great book. I'm actually reading it right now. I'm feeling that I need to go to Bayesian. I'm not just feeling. I'm sure that I have to go and touch the Bayesian statistics a little bit more deep into Markov chain. And Coursera actually has really good courses, I think, from Santa Monica University. I'm not quite sure. I can share that link here as well. Emilio, and what else I hope? Kaggle is the best. Kaggle is the best. I did one project, after school, one project in Kaggle last week, and I was bored, and I was like, okay, I don't have anything to do. Let's just do some Kaggle, and I loved it, and you learn a lot because you go to search. But it just the project could be very easy. It's just like a simple classification. But I ask a lot of questions for myself. For example, I ask myself, how do I know that all the attributes here is related to the classification? Maybe they're not helpful. I remember that I heard something in statistics that, there is a p-value for regression that you can just say how valuable how effective each of the attributes are. I know there are all other feature importance methods and stuff. I didn't want to use the libraries. I wanted to get deep into a statistical perspective of the modeling that I was doing. So it took me a project that I could do in 15 minutes took me 2 days. I was just thinking about it, thinking and asking myself statistical questions that might come up in your job, in your interview. I think those are the great sources. Also, before going to interviews, you can contact people there, data scientists there. That's what I do too on LinkedIn. And hey, I have an interview. And once you say you have an interview, they're going to be super, super supportive. What do you think I should focus on? I did this for Coinbase. They said, hey, you should focus on A/B testing. I was like, I don't have A/B testing experience. Come on. And I didn't get a job because it was A/B testing interview.
I think it's one of those things but that's also the way to go, right? It's be strategic, ask questions, and honestly, I think if you're not reaching out to people on LinkedIn all the time who are currently data scientists, don't ask for a referral, don't give them a resume, but it's hey, I'd love to just learn about what you do, or I'm doing research to make sure I'm preparing for my interviews. What are some common interview questions that I should prepare for, right?
Yeah,
just ask for some advice, but don't ask for anything else.
Exactly. And Glassdoor also has a lot of really good research. For example, big companies, they have their medium.com articles that they say what they're going to ask. If people put Amazon frequently questioned for data science role, and it's going to be tons of information. I did the same thing for Delta, and I did the same thing for Uber. But before going to the next question, I also want to say that for referrals, what I used to get up in the morning, add 200, 300 people. I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating. 200. I'm very consistent. When I decide to do something, I'm very consistent. So I used to add 300, 200 people each day. I think before looking for jobs, my connections, with the number of connections that I had on LinkedIn was 282 something, and then after 2 weeks I had 2,000 people connected. And literally I used to I used to add them in the morning and then go to class, coming back, go to my network and see which one of them accepted my request. And if they did, I'm just going to type them, hey, this is Sahar. I'm graduating from this. Very short. They're not going to have time to read the whole thing.
Right.
I'm reading. I really want to go to this company. This position is open. I was wondering if you could do me a favor and look into my resume. And if you like it, you could refer me. They usually 90% of time they're going to say yes. They're really, really, really helpful. And the other thing that I did when this was my approach in October, but I got better at it once I was doing it. I realized that, instead of like adding 200 people a day or 300 people a day, let's be more specific to the things that you want to do. I was like, okay, I find a job posting. I'm not going to apply for it. I'm just going to find the data scientist people in that company and connect with them. And I say, hey, I find this job. I'm really interested. Can you refer me? That was another thing. And that got me way better referrals and jobs than my last approach. I hope that I asked the questions.
I mean, yeah, honestly, it's just putting yourself out there. And like the more consistent you are, it's funny you mentioned that because I did the same thing when I first was looking for my, last time when I moved companies. I live in Chicago now. When I first moved to Chicago, I never understood that, and it took me a while. But then, same thing, 100, 200 people a day, and it is so shocking how many people who are willing to give you a full hour of their time. I had a tech wonder give me a full hour of billable time for no reason, telling me which VCs to go reach out to, which tech accelerators to go find a job at.
People, if they feel like you're honest, they're going to be very generous with you. Yeah. If they're not,
dicks, but
right,
you get what you get. I mean, not everyone's nice, but if you do 100 a day and you're specific with your ask, if you're like, hey, I just want to learn more about this, and you're not taking anything from them, you're not a threat to them, most people are willing to help. But if you just spray your resume out there, you're going to be like me. I get it all the time, and I'm just like, delete. There's nothing I can do with this, right? It's like, I don't know you. It's extra work for me. I don't really care.
Right.
But if you can prove that you've done some effort and say oh, this is my background. I'm just about to finish up. I'm really interested in this kind of stuff. I'd love to learn more. That will pay dividends. It's hard, right? You're going to do it. When you first do it, it feels like you've sent out 1,000 emails, and then you have one conversation, and then you learn the jargon, you learn the words, you learn what seems more valuable, and then you refine. And this is a very data science thing, right? You optimize. Your job search. This is how you know I'm a nerd.
Yeah. It's a thank you, and I think because it's a little bit controversial, but because it's a good thing, I'm just gonna say I think it's a cultural thing, but because this nationality, these nationalities, they have more international people in the United States. I got the best referrals from Asian people. I don't know their nationality, but they were Asian people, and they are so generous. I got from other people too. I'm not just saying that, but I think they're, because of their culture. I thought, I kept asking them hey, what is in your culture that you guys are so generous? I don't know. My Chinese friend had told me that it is in their culture to help other people because they were in a communist country for a long time, and the focus is group, not individual. That's why. I don't know. I'm very thankful of them, and whenever I see them, I ask them hey, this culture is amazing. Let's promote it to other nationalities as well.
There's definitely no complaints. I mean, we'll take who we can get. But also, I think part of it is right. I think also we haven't really talked too much about this element of it, but it's you're an international student, right? I think if you find other people who have also gone through that process, they know how much of a hassle it is, and that's being nice. It's a fucking pain in the ass. YouTube's going to reject this video, but that's okay. It's I'll just re-upload it like I usually do. It is what it is. But it's one of those things where when you go through that process, right? You know that I know when I was hiring, I was look, I love you, but my boss is not going to give me $10,000 for a lottery ticket to attempt to hire someone and like learn the process, especially at a smaller company. Bigger companies, they have whole departments, but even then, if you're neck and neck with someone else, they're like, I don't have to go through the uncertainty and the extra cost. But when you have someone who's done it, they get it. And like finding people who get it, whether it's that or it's something else, you have some other kind of connection. I mean, especially when you're trying to get that first intro, if use what you have. If you're an international student, go find international students. If you, like me, went to UCLA, go hit up all the Bruins you can find, even if you're not super passionate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm Persian. I can't talk about my own nationality. Our Persians don't help each other. That's a thing. They're not really helpful. I'm sure that people wouldn't get offended. Hey, look, they're laughing. That's true. That's a thing. We know that. So. Like my American friends, they don't really understand the stress. But I got the best help from Asian people, and oh my gosh, I love how helpful they are. And they like literally when I say like thank you too much, they're like, oh, you don't need to thank me. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm so grateful.
No, exactly. What about there's a lot of folks here who are like
very questions from Michael Scott, someone either his name is Scott or
it sounds like two first names. I'm sorry if I'm insulting you, but we'll get to Michael's questions. So Michael, if you want to just throw in the chat, because you say you're a beginner, kind of first looking into getting into data science. Are you going through a data science boot camp? Are you an undergrad? That'll help us actually answer your questions. So I think you're curious about what tips do you have for your undergrad. It helps if you read this thing. So Michael's an undergrad. What should he be learning to break into data science for a first job?
I think being among data scientists is good. I mean, online coursing is amazing, but that's my style. That I want to be there in person, and I think that makes me to learn better. Sorry, I'm just like sharing the link that I promised. This is the book that I told you guys. So yeah, it's just like it helps me to excuse me. Sorry.
No one wants to hear me sneeze. It's loud and frightening. So we're all happy it's you instead of me.
It's just like
And what about for learning, if you want to dive deeper into Python, obviously there's like data camp and that sort of thing. The biggest complaints that I get about that, don't get me wrong, start there. But you want to make sure, as I had a head of training for a big financial company talk to me, and he said, we had our traders go in and go through a data science track on data camp. But the problem is like it's their own proprietary environment, and these guys didn't know how to spin up a Jupyter notebook afterwards. And so he's like, it was a waste of time for them to do that and not get the practical stuff. So just make sure like do it to learn scripting, do it to learn like the basics, but then go into Kaggle or somewhere else where you
absolutely. I started my master's degree with the background of like I did a lot of Python. Like I knew what machine learning is, and I think. I mean, I don't know, again, like the background of all the people here, but I know that data scientists, they all know Andrew and G. I think I took the course years ago, and it helped me a lot. And it's actually, that's going to be...
that's a classic one.
Yeah, that's going to be a perfect start. I learned a lot. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find the resources for people as well as I'm talking.
No worries. I mean, I think the resources, honestly, if you haven't been onto Kaggle yet, that's the first place you go. There's lots of good, there's like contests there, there's really crazy smart people, but you can go through lots of data sets, right? Everything from like bike sharing data to Airbnb stuff to don't do this while you're hungry like I did, ramen shops in New York. Probably the best choice, but really fun stuff, and you get to actually see what's there. Obviously, the difference between that and the real world is those are all really clean data sets, and they're all there for you. So the real world is like, as you know. That's actually one question that I forgot to ask you. What's like the kind of like the difference between doing data science in like an academic setting, right, versus like doing stuff in the world?
I'm going to answer that, but are we going to finish the Michael's questions? I just don't want him to wait too long.
Yeah, so I mean, Michael asked like what tips you have. I think you went through there. He asked what you do as a data
Every
scientist.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of your question too. What is the best way to learn? So I did Python in it. It's not very popular. I don't know why, but it's the very good website, learning website, Team Treehouse. Let me share that. It's I don't know. I learned Python from there, and it was really good for me. It worked really well for me. After a while, you can see that you know the rest of it yourself. You just don't need to pay anymore.
Yeah, well, the monthly ones are nice in that respect.
Yeah, so I share the link with you guys. That's where I learned, but I'm sure that there are tons that you can do, and there's nothing better than
always.
there's nothing better than get your hands dirty with code. And as you mentioned, also Kaggle, like you can start. I don't know how basic you are, but Michael, but I think you can. It's a good thing to if you are not like super beginner, you can go to Kaggle. But if you're a beginner, I think any course would help you out to start.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, any of like the online ones, Code Academy, Data Camp, whatever. It just gets you there thinking like, one, do you like it, right? This is like the most important thing. If you hate Python, data science is not the place you should be, probably.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And just people like focus on Python because Python is very complicated. But guys, don't underestimate actually the value of SQL.
That's the biggest.
That after several interviews, I was like, oh shit, I need to know that.
Every director that I talk to, they always complain that the boot camps overemphasize Python, and then whenever he's like, we hire people and they suck at SQL, and they complain a lot. So that's like actually, I'd say before Python, SQL is what you need to learn, at least from my conversations, and I'm glad you agree. And then Python's next. And then honestly, one thing that also comes up, at least for my conversations, is soft skills. Being able to get the stakeholder, being able to just talk about it, kind of be that bridge between the super technical and like the not crazy technical.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm gonna go to your question as well, but just like if you don't know Python, you're not going to be able to be a data scientist. But if you don't know SQL, you can't even enter to that world. Like if you don't know Python, you can at least be data analytics. But if you don't know SQL, you're not going to be able to even be data analytics. That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's like no code tools, but you're just really limited if all you can do is, unless you're an amazing data viz person, you have to have someone else like make the dashboard for you, have someone else query your data. But if you don't know what you're asking for, like I'm bad at SQL. I wouldn't call myself good, but I know enough to say like, okay, well, I'm gonna go have someone else do this for me. I need to understand what I'm asking for because one, you'll have a lot more respect, but also like when someone says like, so I get a lot of manager types, marketing or product or what have you, and they're like, what class should I take to understand? Like, I don't want to do this stuff, but I have people on my team who do it. I need to know if it's a 10-hour project or a 10-minute project.
Yeah, makes sense. And to answer your question, and also Michael, my everyday life and the projects that I do, I usually work with SQL daily to grab data. Depends on the project. Like I have 2 projects. One of them is completely based on Python. I just collect data from SQL. It's that was the easy part that I have done it I did it like long time ago. And my focus is the modeling and generate the visualization, get it ready for stakeholders, having it on the presentation. Those are the things that I'm focusing on. And another side project that I have, which is the beginning of the optimization and data science project. But the thing is that to begin it, they need to put manual into automation. And that's the hard part. It's very hard coding based job. And I hate it. It's with SQL. It doesn't have data science. I keep saying like, oh, I don't want to do it. But that's the thing. If you're a data scientist, sometimes the project is not ready for you to jump into it. You have to make your project ready for yourself. And that's what I'm doing right now.
No, that's a huge thing that we don't talk about enough is like the data science workflow, if you will. Like most people think, oh, we're just going to be doing this modeling, right? We're going to be making machine learning things, but if your data is not ready, like if you don't have a good question, right? If you don't have it, you don't have the metrics you're going for. If you haven't looked and said, we have this, what we need to get, all those kinds of things. Like it's a lot more complicated, and oftentimes those are the decisions for anything else. Chris,
sorry, and then. Like for the modeling part, I remember that when I was doing, like for example, PCA in my job, I was getting a really weird information for my PCA. Where it should go, the graph where it should have gone up, it would come down. And my boss was like, "What do you think that the problem is?" So my boss comes from statistics background, so he's really good. I'm not. And then I kept looking at the data after PCA, before PCA, and a bunch of stuff that are going on. So I'm saying PCA because now I know that the problem was PCA, but like a lot of steps before PCA, a lot of step after, and I'm saying, I don't know. There should be something going on in the PCA, but we cannot touch PCA of Python. And he was like, why not? That's the problem with the eigenvector. And I was like, oh. I knew what eigenvector is, but I had no idea how to touch it. And then I looked at it, and he was like, "You know what, Sahar? We don't want you as a programmer. I know that you're really good with Python. You're amazing with Python, but I want you to be able to find the issue that you have with your data. That's your data science job." And he's correct. That was my main job. So, that was actually a flick into my head. Like, hey, that's that. You don't go to your boss and like, hey, what is the problem with my data? That's what you have to figure out. So yeah, that's like, know the details of the algorithm that you use. If you want to, you can just because we are data scientists, no one's job is waiting for us. Like, company's gonna earn money while we're doing our things, and so that's a good thing because we're gonna have time both for chilling and to learning. So there is going to be a good time for us to go and look at what algorithm I'm trying to use, what are the options I do have, and kind of like learn what your boss definitely have some good experience and use that.
Oh yeah, and also I think the first thing you said was one of the more important points is just ask your data questions, right? Because that's if you don't know why you're there and what you're doing and what the overall goal is, you're going to struggle to get the end goal. And also you obviously want to do cool data science things, but to your point, you have bosses, they have bosses, and you need to make sure that they know what you're doing and why. Chris Phillips asked a question about when connecting with people on LinkedIn, is it better to go for high level department heads or No,
I go for data scientists usually. I mean, if the senior would answer me, then great. I usually they don't have time. I mean, just the other day, a Microsoft senior answered me. I mean, I'm not looking for a job. I just want to learn about Microsoft. I've heard that they're not really huge in data science, so I'm just thinking about my next job in some years. But I'm trying to make myself ready for that. I'm collecting data, and I wanted to talk to him, and he answered me. But most of the time, the managers, they don't have time. So I go to data scientists to my level. Whatever level you are, I go to that one. Those people.
Yeah, and honestly, you could reach out to all of them. I do for these kinds of talks, and it's always surprising when I get someone who's senior director to respond, and they'll say, "Oh, this is cool." I'm always impressed, but I'd say go for lower level, and then do both. I mean, it costs you nothing.
Yeah.
A couple of emails. But sorry, we need to talk offline because I've got some folks that I think you need to be intro to, in particular at Microsoft. But also, I have the stats friend that I think you'd have fun.
Usually what I do is that I talk to data scientists because first I can ask them what will be the questions. And also I can, they usually say oh, I know the hiring manager of this position. I'm going to go and give them your resume in person. So there are some benefits. If you are from that field, they're going to pay more. If the person who's referring you is the referrer, is the data scientist, they're going to put more attention into your resume.
Yeah, and if you're actually good, or part of it's look, you want to become friends more than it's good to reach out, but if they think it's super transactional, no one's going to do it. But when you ask questions and you try and be nice, ultimately I mean, everyone knows, right? If you guys work at companies, you know that, a lot of times people have referral bonuses. Like I have friends who will get like $5,000 if they refer someone. So, but also you're staking your name on this person. So, there has to be something there. But I think there is also financial incentive for getting referrals. So, it never hurts to find a win-win. And then Natalia asked, how many projects do you juggle? Is it just like one big project, or is it like you have like 10 things on your plate? I'm sure it changes a lot too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have that much experience to basically talk for most data scientists. Definitely, I only had like 1.5 years experience. But for my experience, for when I started, they just put me in a small projects just to learn what's going on, and not just Delta, but like the data science part of Delta, and like talking to different groups, like touching different tables, like changing some stuff, giving me very small projects like, hey, for this specific origin and destination, tell me what is tell me the average of tax that we charge the customers. And then after that, I had like a real defined project, and it was only that, and I was really bored all the time because the thing is that with the corporation, you have to sometimes wait for very, very busy bosses to get back at you. And other than that, you don't have anything to do. And I had to wait so long for an answer, and so it will take you a while. And I decided to, like, I had that on the background, but it wasn't a COVID situation, so it wasn't a really bad thing. So I was like, okay, I can just chill when I don't have anything to do and wait for my bosses. But now that I'm like really into things, I have 2 projects at the same time. Usually one of them has the priority. I own the first project just by myself. And the second one is basically the combination of different departments. But what you own, when you own your project, you have more responsibility. You have to follow up, you have to convince, you have to do everything about it because you own it. Then sometimes it's just the maintenance of your previous project will come back to you. You might end up like one day with 4 things to do, 4 different category of things to do, and someday you just have 1 thing to do. But yeah, at the same time, the defined projects are 2.
Awesome. Well, listen, folks, this has been really good. Sahar, I know we've had you for over an hour, so I really appreciate it. I think it was really good. I think we got a lot of good insights, good advice. I put my LinkedIn in the comments for anyone who wants to connect. Sahar, obviously, you guys can go on LinkedIn and find her.
Guys, reach out to me for referrals. Reach out to me. You don't need to be fancy with me. Please just tell me that you need referral. I'll be more than happy to help you out. I got my job like that. I'm sure that I understand the frustration. Please do that. Email me if you have any question. You need to talk to me. We can set something up to talk on the phone. Yeah, I mean, I think I can find my LinkedIn right now and share with you all.
I'll grab it and put it in. The other thing, folks, so we do have networking tables that are open. So anyone wants to hang out and talk to each other, it's always a great opportunity to connect with everyone else here. So feel free. I think the tables are up to 10 people each. Always a good group of folks to hang out afterwards. Those will stay open. And then look out for emails for the upcoming events. They're going to be really good, all kind of similar like this. So if you like asking questions and kind of getting that off your chest, like definitely come join again. And of course, definitely please give us a like and follow on LinkedIn, YouTube, and your profile, your social channel of choice. We're on all of them. This talk is going to be recorded, so I'll send that out in an additional email. You'll have our YouTube channel so you can see this talk and all the other ones that we've done. Again, thanks everyone for showing up. I know there's lots of other places you could be on a Thursday night, so always happy to see everyone. Thanks again. My name is Aaron Falus, and I will see you next time.
Can I say one thing before we go?
Yes.
Sorry, guys. This is my third talk that I had this month, and all the talks I say like, hey guys, if you're a data scientist and if you want to get a Kaggle experience, I'm looking for people to do it with me. Please join. I mean, reach
Oh, yeah.
out.
Please
I'm
do
open to do it with people. I'm doing it myself now, but it's boring alone, and I'm not learning a lot from just myself and the internet. So yeah, just reach out to me if you're open to do Kaggle with me.
That's really cool. Very happy you said that, because honestly, like, usually what happens is someone waits till the very end after we're not live anymore, and they're like, by the way, I'm hiring. And I'm like, oh, you should have told me. But yeah, so folks, actually, I highly encourage you to go into Kaggle and do that, because that's actually a really great way of learning. And honestly, like, if you're looking for a data science job, really good to talk to another data scientist who can give you pointers. So
our team is not hiring, but Delta is hiring. So check that out and let me know if you need any referral.
Awesome, guys. Thanks. See you next time.